Right, morning, morning. Welcome, everybody. Team dynamics. Is your team dynamic? What are team dynamics? Lee, do you have a dynamic team?
Well, there's only one answer to that. That you painted me straight into that one. I have an amazing team, the best team I could ever have asked for. Yes, and that is true. That is absolutely true. So Edward raised this, and it sort of came out of the conversation yesterday about a mastermind alliance, and I think it's a perfect follow on, because if you're going to bring these people together, and as we go forward with projects and as we reflect on past projects, what works in terms of bringing these people together in relation to their gifts, their talents, their personalities. Maybe Edward will go into more detail whether you're a donkey or an owl or a whatever. But it doesn't matter what kind of person you are. It's still, how do you work with this team that sometimes you've chosen, sometimes gets chosen for you, and this idea of, and it's finding this balance between, we talk about being like-minded. You want to have people who have a common understanding of who we are, what we're about, and the values that we espouse to. And that is the bedrock for me, is that we're on the same page in terms of what it is we want to achieve and more or less how we're going to get there. But you can only think your own thoughts. And I realize my thoughts are very limited by the space between here and here. So the contribution of other people and their experience and their understanding, some of which I could vehemently disagree with. And I think about the time, Trevor and Ivan, we've had our times of, no, I don't agree with that, or that doesn't work for me, or I don't understand how that's going to work. And we've had our little moments of actually, stamping our fists on the desk. And I'm talking about me, of course. No one else does that. But 9 times out of 10, I've gone away and I've thought about it, and I thought, okay, I needed to see it this way. Or if I think about it differently, I could see that point of view. Or no, I hold fast to that, and I'm going to persuade or to find a way of helping Trevor and Ivan to get my point. And so there is that dynamic of this push and pull and learning and figuring things out together in a kind of in a dynamic way. That's why I chose that word dynamic, because it's dynamic. You're constantly moving and changing, and even ourselves, we're changing. So we also in the process of learning through the team. And then I wanted just to come back to this idea of, do you work with people's strengths? And obviously that is the case. However, one of the things I think is a problem is when we over-delegate. And that's me, who's had to learn to let go a lot. So I acknowledge that I am somebody that wants to do things and wants to keep control. And I've over the years learned to let go more and more and more. But I do think in business, and I think specifically of advice I've been given, is, yes, you have an accountant. So let's use that as an example. You have an accountant. And the accountant is there because they have expertise you don't have. And so you need them, and it's important to have that person or that company in your basket. But you cannot delegate understanding your finances to your accountant. It's your business. You must know your numbers. You must understand what the accountant is presenting. The accountant, this delegating to the point of not being responsible and not keeping account yourself. And it's the same, Edward raised the point of negotiation, or not negotiation, but being politically savvy. And I'm realizing more and more as I get older that you have to play the political game. You have to know who's who in the zoo, and you have to be able to know where the power lies, where the decision makers are. And there are people who are adept at weaving and their way in those situations. If you're in a team and you delegate that entirely to one person, remember who you're dealing with. You're dealing with the politically savvy person who's in it for themselves. So don't delegate all of that to the specialist in the team who's good at political savviness, because guess what's going to happen to you? You're going to be politically savvied right out of that team. So those are my thoughts on team dynamics.
Right, thanks, Lee. So yeah, I think based on the core of your discussion there, we've got to get across to our recovering accountant next. So Ed, yeah, over to you.
Yeah, I'm going to ramble a bit. Normally, I love reading Lee's emails, because I like to see how she's summarized what we said the previous time, and how she's pulled out the salient points. And then I like to see how she's framed the subject for discussion the following day. But I was really disappointed by the last email, because she never mentioned Animal Farm, which really annoyed me.
I definitely debated it, Edward, and I thought, well, it's such an in-joke that maybe it's not worth putting in an email.
No, I knew that. But the interesting thing about Animal Farm is I did it as my standard book for my English literature at school. And this is my daughter's copy, because she did it as her standard book for English at school. Yeah. When I did it, the book must have been about 20 or 25 years old. When she did it, the book's 66 years old. Surely in all that time, we must have written something better. Anyhow, but the other thing, I was doing my research last night, because I do like to research. I don't like to wing it. I'm a bit like Lee. I like preparation, unlike Trevor. And it suddenly struck me why I love these chats so much, and why I think they are so valuable. Because I went on this incredible journey, a rich journey. And I can't give you the whole flavor of the journey in the short space of time I've got, but it started with a washing line. And then it went on to pond skaters. I think the Americans and maybe the South Africans might call them water striders, but they're insects that walk across water. And they depend on the surface tension of the water to be able to do that. And then that led on to the test for jaundice, which in turn led on to thinking about the origins of the phrase taking the piss. And there are a couple of explanations, only one of which I would discuss in front of a female. And then that led on to me looking through Johari's window. I don't know if you guys know Johari's window. Yep. And then I thought about SWOT analysis and the Boston matrix, which led on to thinking about earth, wind, fire, and water, with a slight deviation to the band Earth, Wind, and Fire, if you guys know the band Earth, Wind, and Fire. And that led on to thinking about the 4 chambers of the heart. And then the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And finally, I thought, well, does Trevor and perhaps Wisdom's limit themselves by thinking about 1, 2, 3 and not for. Because if you look at a lot of stuff, it's to do with for. Now, I've just been told to focus, so I will focus. And the whole thing I was looking at was that model of politicalness and how adept you are at being political. And we talked about the fox, the owl, the sheep, and the donkey. And the model was first developed in 1987 by some guys from Birmingham University. Actually, Trevor's just put in their three-legged stool. And I did wonder why, when 3 points are the thing you can always pass a plane through, and they're not an aeroplane, a plane as in a dimension. And therefore, a three-legged stool will always stand up on an irregular surface. Why we always use 4 legs for furniture? But that was a bit of the richness I left out. But anyhow, back to the diagram. The diagram is really based on 4 squares, which arrive because you're looking at 2 axes. Is it axes or axi? I don't know, but and the vertical axis goes from being politically unaware to being politically aware. And the horizontal axis goes from really game playing and being self-interested to being acting with integrity. And therefore, on the very far top left is a very clever person who can manipulate the system, but does it for themselves. And on the bottom right is someone that's completely politically unaware, but is full of integrity, which is a sheep. And then on the top right is someone that's politically aware, but also has integrity. So you might think of Nelson Mandela in that box, probably. Where you'd stick Tabo and Becky, I don't know, but that's a different discussion. And when I first became the chief executive of the Communication Workers Friendly Society, I had a lay board. And in fact, you know, they controlled everything. And they were made up of trade union officials, senior trade union officials. And they were very, very politically aware. That's how they got to the top. If you study trade unions, the guys down the bottom, they really have integrity, they really care. The guys at the top are just in it for themselves. They're the mirror image of conservative politicians. They're just on the politically left of the spectrum, conservatives on the right. They're in it for themselves. And I thought, well, how do I manage this? Because at the time I was probably a sheep, maybe even a donkey. You know, I was right down at the bottom of the politically aware. When you're a chartered accountant, you don't play office politics. There aren't any. You just get on with the job. So I knew the chairman. I'd met the chairman through my work as an auditor. I used to audit his union when he was the treasurer. And he got the job as treasurer, not knowing anything about accounts. It was a sort of buddy system. He was due to get a nice job. He got a nice job. So I taught him accounts. So we had an affinity. And I used to work with him and say, look, this is what we need to do. How do we get it through the board? And then he would tell me how to negotiate it through the politics. And we had this, and he didn't care that much about himself at that point because he was on a fixed term and he was going to retire afterwards. He was still playing the game a bit because sometimes he would say, look, we aren't going to do that because it was upset too many people and I don't want that fight. So just back away, Edward. Other times he'd say, right, okay, yeah, I understand what you need to do. This is what you need to do. And I think we need to do that in business, don't we? Work with people that can navigate us through difficult situations. And we were talking about, should we have harmony or conflict? Opposite or aligned with our thinking was the words that Lee used in our email. And I think conflict is the wrong word to use. I think we need to use tension, because tension is useful, because a washing line without tension isn't very useful, is it? And then how does that pond skater walk on the surface of the water? Because of surface tension. Tension can be very useful in certain circumstances. Of course, water surface tension's a problem if you want to wash your clothes. That's why we use detergent, and that's why we use hot water. Hot water has less surface tension than cold water. So I think a certain amount of tension is good in the right place. So you need to work with people that are different, and that perhaps, you know, the definition of tension is a force which tends to stretch something. So we need tension to stress us, to stretch ourselves. Too much, and we just have a riot, don't we? So I think we do need to work with people that are aligned with our views, because that chairman, despite being a fox and a very clever fox, he did care about the organization more than he cared about himself. Only because he was going to retire, and it didn't matter what greasy pole he climbed, because he reached the top of his greasy pole. So you need to have people that are aligned with your thinking, with your morals, with your goals, but they needn't think like you, because as Ivan says, if you've got loads of people in the room that are exactly the same, everyone bar one's redundant. But they can't be totally opposite to you. The donkey is not going to get on with the fox. What do foxes do? They eat lambs, young sheep. So they'll have a go at an owl as well. If they can get hold of an owl, they'll eat an owl. So I think you've got to be very clever about who you, and Lee alluded to it, you've got to be very clever who you team up with, because if you've got the ultimate fox, well, just bear in mind who you're dealing with and what your capabilities are. So that's my thought on the thing. And I'd love to explore at some point in time this whole thing about almost all business models. You know, I mentioned the Johari's window, which isn't a business model, it's a psychiatry model, I think, or a personality model. SWOT analysis, Boston matrix, you name them. Are they fours because it's easy to put on a page and you can't include a third dimension? And Lee mentioned that third dimension. We change with time, we evolve with time. So those models are static. They're two-dimensional. Or is 4 some sort of magic number? 4 chambers of the heart, 4 seasons, 4 points of the compass, the 4 elements, the 4 classic elements, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Is there a magic in 4? And is Trevor's 1, 2, 3 missing that magic? So those are my thoughts. And I really enjoyed the research last night. And I could talk more about taking the piss, the test for jaundice, which is connected with surface tension. There's a lot more I could say, but I do think you need to choose who you cooperate with very carefully so that the tension doesn't break you, you don't snap. I'd hate to think it when Lee snaps, that would be very scary. And I could never see Ivan thumping his fist on the table. He just gives you that look. Ivan's just got to give you a look, and that's it. So that's my contribution. A bit of a Trevor ramble, but never mind.
Good, thanks, Ed. Yeah, good one. So yeah, lots in that. So we better get across to the coach next. So Coach Tabiso, how do you put a team together?
Firstly, when I thought about, Animal Farm, I thought about pigs, and I really didn't want to talk about pigs. I'd rather talk about like my favorite animal, and that's the lion. I like a lion because it is strong and it is affirmed, confident, and it prizes solitude. And solitude is important because that's how one gains, self-mastery. And develops, as a human being, And I like a lion because, a lion doesn't like concern himself with like the opinions of zebras, because they just prey and a lion has got, you know, like his pride, you know. So it is important to not, you know, care what people think about you. In fact, you know, it's not really your business, you know, what people actually think. Self-worth actually emanates from within, you know, and a lion has that, you know. You are the only person that matters. And I think that as a person, your thoughts and dreams are actually paramount, you know. You don't have to be what people say that you are, you know. You can be a lion. You are a lion, you know. A lion is strong and confident and has roar, you know. Um, People's thoughts can actually cripple you, you know, and they can actually tend to be individualistic, you know. You can't be trapped in dogma, which even with other people's, you know, thoughts and conditions and programming, you know. Um, a lion is a king of its life, you know. It has a swagger about its walk, you know. It is the ultimate symbol of self-realization, and I'm very big on self-realization, you know. And you see this dramatized on stories like The Lion King. And The Lion King is a Disney movie about this lion who actually goes on the journey of self-realization, you know. Now, he's the hero king, you know. Simba is the archetype of the hero, you know. Simba is just like Jesus Christ in a sense, and Neo on the Matrix, you know. And I think what this means is that when you follow who you are to the core, you know,
You seem to have lost,
Yes, you know.
lost him. Yeah, get that elastic band wound up, Trevor. Tabisa, are you with us? Yeah, looks like we've lost him in the depths of Santon City there. All right, so there we go. Are you back with us, Tabisa?
Oh, I'm back. And where was I? Sorry, lost again.
No, you with us? No.
You're on Simba's journey of self-discovery, self-realization.
Self-realization. Okay. Now Simba is the archetype, like I said, you know, of the hero like Jesus Christ, and actually, you know, like Neo and the Matrix, you know. Now what this means is that if you follow your heart and do what you must, you know, you will attract followers who believe in you. So it is important to have a self compass, you know. The conquering lion is saying no, you know, to anything that isn't necessarily making you grow as an individual, you know. A lion asserts its will, you know. It is the king of its life. It is operating with complete freedom in a sense, you know. And a lion lives by its conditions, you know. It leads a pack. Um, a lion has responsibility, you know, because it has to care for your pride and everything. So this is very important because as a lion, you have to do things that are, you know, good for the benefit of the team, you know, but you must know who you are, and you know who you are through, you know, like self-realization. I think that's very big, you know. Um, a lion is something that I represent. I like a lion too much, you know, because it represents everything that I believe in, you know. As an individual, you are like you are what you are today, you know, and tomorrow it's the same thing, and next week it's actually the same thing, and here you're the same, you know, so you're the same person, I think, like every day. So you have to contend with who you are every day, you know. So you have to have values that are in line with who you are to the core, so you can be confident in yourself, you know, so that you can actually be proud of yourself. That's where confidence grows, you know. So in terms of the whole team dynamic thing, I think that if you have something that is bigger, you know, if you are strong within, you know, if you are a lion, you know, things, if you are a lion, like you, a lion, man, my thoughts are eluding me. Let me just leave it there. I think just the lion, you know, I think just the lion. So thank you, Ivan.
Thanks, Toby. So yeah, so we better get across to the alpha female in the group, seeing that we're Lisa alpha male. So Trevor, over to you.
Yeah, I know when to subordinate myself in this group. That's for certain. Now, listen, I think we've been taken on a journey around the animal farm, and Tobisa tried to skirt the pig pen, but I think that's a great place to be, in the pig pen. And so why do I say that? So I haven't got a clue why we went down this route. Oh, now I remember why we went down this route. It was about harmony and disharmony. Should we all be aligned? I mean, it talks absolute codswallop, but you know what? I just have to sit back and think, what a poor upbringing he had as an accountant. It must have been such a dreadful life, but he's broken free and is now running out in the deserts, and he's starting to get great ideas coming in. But let's focus on that pig. You know, the one thing about the pig is without him or her, we'd have no bacon and eggs in the morning. And what's the greatest thing you can possibly have in life? It is bacon and eggs. And there's that old analogy of for bacon and eggs to happen to give me joy on my Saturday and Sunday mornings with my family, the pig was committed, but the chicken wasn't. And I think that gives an indication of really the two opposite qualities that you might actually have in a boardroom or in a group of people. There are those that are totally committed, and there are those that are just participating and chucking their little things in, and then they go back home and they sleep, and they're not as committed as the pig really is in that relationship. And I was also thinking, you know, just looking through Ed's eyes, oh, gee, you know, as I look through Ed's eyes, it's like the Matrix, and my hackles raise looking through his eyes, but I'm trying to step into his shoes. What I'm thinking as Ed is talking, Ben, but what about cross-industry innovation? Ideas that come from different sectors. How about a sense of humor? Because most people in boardrooms have a complete sense of humor failure. You have people walking into those boardrooms with exactly what it is they want to do, and they're going to push everyone in that direction. And if anyone comes in with something from left field, it completely blows them out for the day. In fact, you can see the clouds hanging over their heads. And again, this is where I try and step into Ed's shoes, and I can understand he's in the UK, and to have this weather pattern hanging over your head for your entire life. I understand where you come from, Ed, but we live in sunshine and there's hope every day. You've got to have people who are willing to push, listen, I have zero respect for anyone who is in any form of leadership, because we know most people in leadership, especially political figures, and you can see what's happening in South Africa, but I mean, UK are the masters because they taught colonialism in Africa. So they brought how to stuff it up, and they brought patronage, and they brought the old boys network and all that codswallop. And this is what confronts us who are looking to work with youngsters like Tabiso, who's actually teaching us how to look through his eyes currently in this current world. But if I was looking through Tabiso's eyes, or no, Tabiso's a lot smarter than the average youngster out there. The average youngster is looking around and turning around and saying, you know, do I really need to study? Do I really need to do these things? All I've got to do is become a ward councillor or sort of a political figure, and then I must just agree with the top leadership, and then what they will do is they'll give me the tenders and the quotes and all that. So patronage on this animal farm is what's actually killing the world at the moment. Now, how did I get down there? Because if you do not have the self-esteem and confidence of that lion that Tabiso is talking about, to actually stand up to these individuals, you end up backing up what has dragged us into this world of corruption here in South Africa. Too scared to stand up to the guy at the top and say that this is not acting with integrity. Now, having traveled around the entire animal farm, I think I've come through the pig swill. I've got the smell all over me. I am the committed guy, but I'm starting now to connect with Ed, who said, you know what, if you can find people that just act with integrity and honesty, I think that is the base that we want to work from when you are working with groups, and not those that appear to be these false leaders who you've got to bow down to just to make certain that you get a job. And the challenge with that is anyone with self-esteem who has got this independent point of view, who goes into a boardroom, you must know that you're going to be fired in the next 30 minutes. So you've really got to have a strong self-worth and self-interest. And if you're not fired, know that the next day you might be put in as the leader, because what happens in most of these groups, the people who say the most or come up with the most ridiculous comments or actually push back, people tend to leave the room and say, okay, you've got all the great ideas, you take this project and now you make it work. So if you're going to go into any particular forum with new ideas, do know that people will lump the whole leadership challenge upon you and say, okay, make it work. And in the background, they're hoping that it will fail. I'm talking out of the pig pen. Pick up what you want from that and grasp some straws and build your straw house with that.
And he's left me in the muck because I haven't got a clue where to go from there. Yeah. You know, I can't deal with you. I'll deal with you tomorrow on that comment. All right, so yeah, well, it's simply silly to replicate your weaknesses, and it's pointless to replicate your strengths. So when you put a team together, don't bring people in who are the same as you. You've got to bring in diversity, you've got to bring in difference, you've got to bring in people who are going to challenge you, challenge your thinking, challenge your ideas, challenge your way of operation even. I think, but the big thing for me, and I think it's been touched on, is, you know, you need a team that you can trust, and that's the biggest thing. You know, if you find people in that team that you can't trust, well, you simply need to get rid of them. So there's nothing wrong with being challenged. There's nothing wrong with being tested. There's nothing wrong with being pushed. You know, to your boundaries and your limits, as long as you know it's been done with integrity. And and you know, with the objective of building rather than breaking down. So, you know, some people like to challenge some people because they like to take you down. But if it's done in the right way, it can really build you up. So I think those are the key elements for me in a team. And yeah, you need the big thinkers. You need the micro detail people. And Lee, you've got to learn how to delegate. You have to delegate. Otherwise, you get delegated to. So what happens is things get delegated upwards if you don't know how to delegate yourself. So so some of the worst leaders are those who can't delegate, because everything gets delegated back up to them and they wind up being micromanagers, and nothing really happens. So yeah, I think delegation is key. But again, once again, it comes down to trust, doesn't it? You've got to trust that the people that you're delegating to are going to deliver, and deliver to, you know, to the benefit of the team. So yeah, lots of challenges in team dynamics. You know, I'm not too sure whether we would use a fox in this part of the world. We'd probably put a hyena in the mix. So yeah, that could bring all sorts of other interesting challenges. And it is interesting how many of these animal groupings are actually matriarchal rather than patriarchal. So yeah, you know, to be so, you spoke about lions. Well, you know, unfortunately, Simba might have been the king, but he certainly wasn't the boss. So yeah, you know, lions matriarchal, elephants matriarchal, hyenas matriarchal. Yeah, so it's an interesting challenge how often the ladies come out on top, and I don't know why I said that, but yeah, you know, we've got a lady boss, so, you know, got to be politically correct, you know, play the game. Let her believe she's in charge, even if she's not really. All right, yeah, to be so, what have I just blown it? Damn, I'm going to get kicked out of this team now. So yeah, okay. So I won't see you guys on Friday because I've just been fired. So yes, Ed, over to you.
It just reminded me of something actually, which I find quite strange, because we've been talking about teams and cooperation and all that sort of stuff. So why do we have chief executives? Why do we have chairs? Why do we have prime ministers? If teams are so effective, why do we have one person in charge? And you know, an interesting question maybe, but it just struck me then as you were talking about Lee being the boss.
Yeah, well, I think it's really simple. It comes down to a 3-letter word. So, you know, and that's EGO. You know, there's always somebody who thinks they need to be in charge. So, yeah, someone has to take the final decision. Yeah.
We can go in many directions tomorrow. The numbers game, 3 or 4. I think that definitely we have to at least talk about that at some point in time. But Edward's just raised the point of hierarchies. And I think that's an interesting one. And Trevor, what are your thoughts?
No, you know what?
She just delegated to you, by the way.
No, I'm listening, but I just wanted to bring up a comment that Ed left, and I loved it, but I wrote it down somewhere. It was something along the lines that he came into this thing. And it became a journey, and it's just taking him all over the place. And I think I got the interpretation out of this that Ed was perhaps thinking through a box that was a regimented box, and all of a sudden in these chats he's found himself going off, because I think Ed to me is the master of focus. So I think he's well researched and gets into all of that. And what we've been doing with him is having a lot of fun, because we've been watching him come out of his box, running into that box, going off in this direction and doing this. And I think he's found this as something of an adventure. And the statement that he made, just it was why I love these chats so much, and why I've enjoyed, and I think he said why I've enjoyed the journey. That's what I copied when he started, and then he went into that introduction, and it's something. And you know, this is for me how the pig pen works. You just go and flop in that blooming water and you watch it splash, and then you see what comes out of it. Because as much as Ed, I think, is entranced by the lack of focus and going all over the place here. In the background, we've been building stepping stones to a major global operation, which is quite interesting. And I'd love us at some later stage, maybe it's a internal business strategizing session about what's come out of the randomness of these discussions, which has actually built a foundation. And I think it all ties back into the honesty and integrity and the sharing of different points of view as much as they can be off the wall, building a foundation of integrity. I just wanted to add that, and I was blown away with that statement. I love these, yes, why I've loved these chats so much and why I've enjoyed the journey. I want Ed to write a book around that.
All right, so where are we going tomorrow after that?
Threes and fours.
So I think let's talk, you know, I mean, based on, as a summary, I think the 3s and 4s we can talk about another time. I think let's save that for next week.
Damn, I wanted to go to Ancient Aliens because they talk about 12s.
Yeah. Structure. Let's talk about structure tomorrow. Because that will bring in this whole element of hierarchies, as well as what Trevor was just talking about now, is how much do we focus, how much do we play, what is adventure, what is, so let's talk about structure as either a way of thinking or a way of organizing teams. You know, how much structure do we need, how much structure do we just, you know, it must just be the knitting ball that's all wound up. So let's
very structured, very structured.
I'll interpret this.
Interpret this, yeah. The butterfly effect,
Okay.
yeah.
So Ivan, we won't see you tomorrow.
I'm fired, obviously, yeah, gone. All right. So. And I'll be here. I think, am I allowed to be here? Please, can I?
Oh, so I thought you said I'm not going to be here Friday, no?
Yeah, because you were firing me, because I was being insubordinate.
Never in a million years, sorry, even if you want to.
All right, good.
Bye,
okay,
everyone.
Well, go and be structured or unstructured, whatever floats your boat. I don't know. But both don't float if they're not structured. But anyway, we'll take something from there. See you tomorrow. Cheers.